Hello and welcome to a Wednesday morning live stream that was definitely planned and not a spur of the moment thing like the other ones. Hope everybody's good. I'm going to wait a second and then quickly check my audio to make sure things are working. Trying something slightly different today because I can never do things the same twice. Hello and welcome. Hey, I think it works. I'm using the DJI Mic Mini, which I've used a lot in videos, but I've never used for a live stream. Tested it all out. It should be okay. We'll see. I just move around a lot sometimes during streams, so it's fun to like not have to like be conscious of staying near a microphone. So I've got this camera. I've got here, I don't know, there's a thing I was planning to do, yeah, and then I've even got a camera here for no real reason, but other than fun. Actually, and then I also have a little webcam up here, so should be covered if I need to be mobile during this. So thanks for being here, appreciate it. We got people from all over the world. I got JT Podcast, we got James Downey from the ATL, Gordo's Games, also from California, where I'm at. We've got Kane Visuals, what's up? Glad you can, Kane, make it. We've got Bobcat in Michigan, Action Pop Podcast, and Chip from New Hampshire. So we're just doing a stream. I have a zero agenda, zero plan. We're just going to kind of hang out, talk about whatever. I have plenty of things I could talk about if if you all don't have anything. But if there's something you want me to cover or want to talk about or want to share or whatever, a lot has happened since last time I did a stream, so I'm happy to do that. Peak Time Racing is asking which camera and lens are you using. I'm using a few different ones. So this one right here is my Canon EOS R with my Canon 35mm f2 lens. The reason for that is because I'm using as you can see here, I'm using the Rodecaster Video for the stream. It's a 1080 switcher, so using the 1080 camera, it's really nice. Yeah, I'm trying to figure out a thing with a 4K switcher, but it got a little tricky. So anyway, the what is it? The Rodecaster Video, I can remember these things, is very reliable, so I'm using that. That's the main camera here. Over here, though, I do have my Sony FX3 with a Sony 24mm lens. And you can see I have like my little Ecamm camera adjustments, but going between these, you can see just the Canon and Sony color thing, where Canon kind of like has more of a reddish tint and Sony has a greener tint. Not good, bad, right or wrong, better, worse, just different. And it's always interesting when you can see those right there. And then this camera is something very interesting that I want to use a lot more, but I actually need to wait for software. So what this camera is actually the YOLO cam. Here, I'll put it here. So YOLO Box makes a lot of live streaming software. They have a camera. It's this one. It's pretty much the craziest webcam. It's a mirrorless webcam, essentially. Interchangeable lens webcam, and it's pretty sweet, and it has autofocus. Even it's very interesting. The reason I'm not using it more, and there you can kind of see some image quality. The reason I'm not using it more is because they just came out with the Mac software, so it has Windows software. There are no buttons. If you notice, there's no screen, there's no buttons on this, nothing. So you control everything from software. And they're just now like releasing the Mac version, so I can't do like white balance or shutter or any of that kind of stuff until I think it's next week, either later this week or next week. There's supposed to be an update that does that. So it's a really fun camera. Like, it still works as plug and play. I have this as an HDMI output. It will work as a USB webcam on Mac. It's all fully featured on Windows. But so I don't want to use it and like give the wrong impression, but it's a really cool camera, and I have a lot to say about it. I am a Sony guy. I was actually just realizing this month, it was 4 years ago this month, I got my first Sony camera, the a7S III, and that means 4 years. I don't think that's the longest I've ever had a camera, which sounds crazy, like, because when it comes to like DSLRs, my first DSLR was a Canon XTI. I had that from 2007 to 2010. Then I had the T2i from 2010 to 2013. When I got the 60D, I had the 60D from 13 to 15, the 6D from 15 to 17, the 6D Mark II from 17 to 19, the EOS R from 19 to 21. So pretty much 2, maybe 3 years is what I've been doing with cameras, and I've had my Sonys now, the a7S III for 4 years, the FX3 for about 3.5 years. Same with the a7 IV. I got those kind of at the same time. So, and I have like no desire to upgrade. So Sony's just really been kicking butt, and they're awesome. But you know, all cameras are pretty awesome. Oh, see, perfect. Yeah, sold all gear, full-time Sony. You got to go with what works. And Canon has come a long way in the 4 years since I switched to Sony. like I'm using my Canon right now, which I really love for a 1080 camera. It's fantastic. But I was looking for full frame 4K, and especially looking back, 5 years ago, 4 or 5 years ago, Canon just wasn't really competitive with Sony. And so when I just literally put all the things that I wanted on a piece of paper, Sony was the only company that actually had that. So that's why I ended up going with Sony, even though I really wanted to stay with Canon. At the time, that was my thing. But my Sony cameras are great. And like, I know, the A7S III and the FX3, those are 5-year-old cameras pretty much at this point. And I know they just kind of updated the FX3 a little bit. There's not much that's going to make me need to upgrade a camera anytime soon, which is pretty cool. JT says there's an issue about RCV auto switching getting mic signals from Rodecaster Pro 2. Interesting. I'm wondering what the issues are, or if it's a beta firmware thing or whatever, because I've used the Rodecaster as just a USB input where it doesn't break down the channels or anything. Here, use the Rodecaster in this. So this, when it's connected through USB, the Rodecaster video just sees it as one source. It can't see that you have all your different channels and inputs, currently at least. And I've used that and it's been fine. So I'm wondering if you're having trouble with that or something else. Marty switched from Nikon to Sony. Interesting. I'm curious what Nikon was. I'm curious what you had with Nikon and what you wanted from Sony, because the newer Nikons I know are pretty great, pretty awesome. Stefan's still on the Sony A7 too. I mean, but it's proof, right, that they last a long time. Yeah. I'd love a better camera, but I'm literally in a cupboard, so my Obsbot Tiny 2. That's what I have. I have the Tiny. This is the, where is it? This is the Tiny 2, and I can hold my hand up and maybe hold my hand up, I said. Hold my hand up, I said. Oi. Well, it was doing it before the stream, at least. It should be able to track me. But I also flail my hands like a crazy person. Why are you, there you go, there we go. Oh, there we go. Now we're tracking. All right, so I don't know, I did that in case I needed to get up and get something. The camera could follow me. So it's always fun to have that there. For those reasons, what button do I press? This button right here. Love Canon, but Sony just started offering more and more. The colors got better. It was a tough decision, but Sony was the way. Yeah, that's kind of how I felt, especially like, I don't know, like if you remember like 4 or 5 years ago, a lot of Sony fans were very excited to be Sony fans. And you kind of felt bad if you used something else. It was like, it was very intense to like not use Sony if you're really a camera nerd or something. And that kind of made me not want to use Sony because it was so, I didn't like that. But when I put all that aside and I just looked at what I needed and wanted from a camera on paper, Sony was the one. I tried a bunch of other stuff. I tried a Nikon. I rented a Blackmagic, which I really love, but it wasn't the best for a one-person thing, like the kind of stuff that I do. Or essentially, I just really needed good autofocus, and Blackmagic did not have that at the time. SJ switched to Canon 5 years ago after using Canon for 20 years. Canon options weren't great back then. I kept all my glass, though. Oh, switch. Okay, gotcha. Yeah, see, that's the thing, too, with lenses, because I've had people, was it the Lumix S2 something, whatever the new Lumix is that came out, where people are like, oh, that's the FX3 killer. And I'm like, well, on the one hand, a camera in 2025 maybe should be better than a camera from 2020. That makes sense. But on the other hand, like, it's hard to switch entire camera systems for one camera body. Like, if you have all the lenses and stuff, you're kind of locked in, and it's either a lot of time and probably a lot of lost money to switch your lenses to get to a new camera system. I don't know. So it's like, once you're in an ecosystem and you have a lot of lenses especially, you're kind of in there, and unless there's a real reason you don't want to be there anymore. Eric and Erica, what's up? Got the Rodecaster Video and Rodecaster Duo, but having an issue. The mic tied to my Duo ran through the video sounds like it's duplicating the mic track. Okay. I haven't had that issue, but that sounds like it must be some sort of mix minus situation. So in your Rodecaster Duo, let's see, because you're doing USB output, that's probably what it is. Can't say 100% for sure. Do I have like a way I could actually show this? Because then that would be incredibly helpful. This will not be steady though. This is going to be, oops, I covered up the autofocus thing. Can I do it? Okay, you're going to get motion sickness here. If you go to your Rodecaster Duo and you go into settings, and then you can go into your outputs and routing, USB 1, I'm guessing that's what you're running into the Rodecaster video. Oops, I pushed the wrong button. Outputs, routing, USB 1. If you have main mix, that means you're going to be getting, it's basically going to be sending the signal out twice. So you could do mix minus, or you could go into custom and then make sure you're only including the tracks that you want to have out. I can't say for sure that that is what the problem is, but that sounds like, and anytime you have duplicate stuff like that and you're running a USB source, a lot of times it's USB mix minus. Can't totally guarantee. Monitors. This is my LG something or other. It's a 34-inch LG. It's the cheapest ultra-wide 34-inch curved monitor they make, but it's also 5 years old or so at this point. It's not 4K. But it's a nice monitor. I really like it. And then this is an HP Omen. This is not curved. This is a 27-inch display. This was actually my wife's monitor for a long time. But for some reason, it's a really nice monitor. It looks awesome. But it only has one HDMI input, and then it has a mini display port, or a display port, sorry, that was broken. And we didn't realize it was broken until essentially she was trying to put 3 input sources into her monitor. And it's like, there's only one HDMI, which is very strange on kind of a more expensive monitor. And then the display input was broken, which I think has been broken since we got the monitor. So anyway, long story long, replaced her monitor in her office. And then I was like, oh, well, I might as well. That's why I took my Rodecaster off of here, because my Rodecaster was on the arm over here. And then I just figured, well, why not have, if there's a monitor that's available, why not just have the monitor and use it? Like, no reason not to. I only need one input in here, so it's perfect. How about a brief overview of the YOLO, the mirrorless cam? Yes, I can do that. I wish I had a better way to like show it. But basically, what YOLO came out with, so the people who do the YOLO Box Extreme, all that kind of stuff, they came out with a camera to pair with their system. So it does, it's kind of awesome. I have this, it's a very interesting camera. And I actually think it's going to be the perfect camera for a really specific person. But it's not the camera for everybody. It has this little bracket on here that I'm going to take off. So the build quality on this is amazing. It basically feels like an FX3 or an FX30 with none of the stuff. It's like just a slab of metal, which basically also kind of means the whole thing is a heat sink. So in theory, it should never overheat. But yeah, it's a webcam. It's a USB webcam. But it also has an HDMI output, USB output, and then you also have a microphone input if you want. And that's it. There's no other buttons. There's an accessory shoe here. What's strange, though, and interesting is you notice the quarter 20 mount is here. So it is very much designed for vertical video. And there's a bracket you can drop on the floor. There's a bracket you can put onto it, which will make a racket when you drop it on the floor, and that will give you the bottom quarter 20. Probably because this is just so thin. The sensor inside, it's a micro 4/3 camera. So it has I believe it's, I don't know, I believe it's like Lumix guts, because I'm using a Lumix lens with it, and there is autofocus, but it's like this, I don't know if I don't know what kind of autofocus it is, but it's here and not like in the lens or in the camera. So it's this separate autofocus system, almost like what they're making for like the DJI cameras and stuff, where you can put it on top and like it does crazy autofocus stuff. But it does have an interchangeable lens, so you can put all your micro 4/3 lenses on there. This is a 46. This is a 25 millimeter prime lens, and that's basically it. So everything else is controlled through software. You just decide if you want to connect it through HDMI or USB. You have USB for power, and then everything else is done through software. The image quality is quite good. There's no image stabilization. There's autofocus. I don't have any soft. Oh, what I keep doing though is I keep grabbing it like this and I cover up the autofocus stuff. So you have to make sure not to do that with it. If I don't do that, then it should work quite well. Yeah. And if I turn this towards me, let's see, I need to be like positioned far away, covering up the autofocus again. There we go. Autofocus works really well. See if I need to like work on camera positioning, but I think this could actually fit where like my EOS R is. It could work really well. Obviously it's 4K output. It's more cropped in because it's micro 4/3, so a smaller sensor. But here's the thing about it is what is the price on this? $899. It's like $800 or $900. It is not a cheap camera, and so right there, I think a lot of people are like, "Oh, cool, that's not for me," which I totally get, because for that same price or even less, sometimes you get like the Sony ZV-E10, the original one. Basically, especially once you add a lens on this, you could end up with a Sony ZV-E10, maybe an E10 Mark II body, or an E10 with like a Sigma prime lens. And those are like full cameras, right? They have screens, they have buttons, you can take them out into the world and do things with them. So, you know, this is a little like overpriced, I think. However, the person that I think this is for is not necessarily me, who loves cameras and buttons and gizmos and stuff. I think this is for the person, essentially like my wife Heather, where we redid her whole setup last summer, and if this camera existed, it might have actually been the perfect camera. Her camera lives on a tripod. It never moves. Like, she has a push button setup, so everything looks awesome and it's amazing, but like it stays the same all the time. She never moves her camera, never changes anything. It just turn on, record, stream, turn off, done. This is the perfect camera for that, because it looks, it's basically for like the person who wants a webcam but doesn't want it to just look like a webcam. You want the look of a mirrorless camera, you want the shallow depth of field, you want that, you know, that higher quality look of a mirrorless camera and an interchangeable lens camera. Like, look at this beautiful background blur and bokeh and all this cool stuff. You want that look, but you're not a camera nerd. You don't want to learn all the stuff about cameras. You want something that you just set up, you never touch it again, never do anything with the camera. You have your software where you can adjust some settings and you're good to go. And that's kind of who that is for. And I think that that's a really, like, I think it's a really specific person, especially, you know, you shouldn't ever need to worry about overheating. You get 4K, you get good, or you get really great, kind of cool, different autofocus, which I'm excited to play with. So that's pretty much that. They do have all the software available on Windows, but like I said at the beginning, I have a Mac, so I haven't been able, they just came out with like a version of the Mac software, but I am waiting for another update in the next week or two where I can then dive in and start really using the camera's settings, because that is where, you know, the benefit is you don't need to touch the camera, everything's done in software. The con, if you're someone like me who like just wants to go grab, you know, my camera and turn all the buttons, is you can't. So it's a very specific person, but for that person, I think it suits them really well. Like, you want the usability of a webcam, but the quality of a mirrorless camera, basically. Are you teeny little? Sure, yeah, there we go. Oh, Marty was using old Nikon. It was time to change something, so I went Sony. About the time he went Sony, yeah. Okay, yeah, Nikon at that time was definitely quite different. And thank you for the kind words. I hope you're able to figure out your Rodecaster. It doesn't sound like a problem, like a defect. It sounds like a setting issue, which is really cool. What's up, Animation Towers in the UK? Hi, Mark, how are you? UK represent. There we go. 45 people and 2 likes. Yeah, how do we not do that? Robotrix, what's up? It's nice to see you here. I always like that Ecamm can't display the like stickers that YouTube chat does, so it just tells you what they are. That always makes me funny. Need help with a wireless mic to do interviews with ZV-E10 with as little editing as possible. Okay, yeah. There's no shortage of options. If you watch my second most recent video, it's the comparison of the DJI Mic 2, the Rode Wireless Micro, and the Hollyland Lark M2. Those are three of the best systems out there. And I kind of rank them in different areas. You can't go wrong, really. I would kind of lean towards either the Hollyland or the DJI if you want super compact, because they're super compact. I would then move towards either the DJI Mic 2 or the Rode Interview Pro or the Sennheiser Profile Wireless, one of the bigger compact systems if you want internal recording. So these super tiny ones like I'm using right now, they sound awesome. There's no editing, but there's no internal recording either. So, if this signal were to drop out and I were recording, that audio is just lost forever. If you have the backup recording and something happens, you have interference, your signal drops out, you have the ability to then put in that recording. But any of the wireless systems that you just run straight into the mic input on your ZV-E10, it will be synced automatically, so you don't have to do any editing. You just have to make sure the gain levels are good. If you're going the DJI route, they do have the Sony adapter. Saramonic also has this for the Ultra as well. which then lets you connect the system directly to your Sony's hot shoe, and then it automatically adjusts the audio, so you don't have to. It kind of removes one more potential for error. So, yeah, can't go wrong. If you want more info on any of those specific ones, or you're trying to decide between one or two or something, happy to help with that too. Scrappy Creative, nice to see you here. From camera bodies to instruments, any arts gear. A better one won't make you better at your craft, so my rule is don't upgrade till you're better than your current gear. That's very similar. I like that rule. Although I have really nice instruments that I do not feel qualify. If we're talking about skill level dictating necessity, maybe this $90 guitar is my thing, but these other more expensive ones, probably not. A thing that I like to say is start with what you have and upgrade as your needs become apparent. Because if you watch the stream right now and you're like, oh, I really like the way that looks. And so then you just look at the gear that I use and you like max out your credit card at B&H, just getting like all of the things, every exact thing that I'm using, you might not actually end up with the exact same results. And it might not work for you because like this specific setup is tailored to me and to what I like and to my setup. And so you have different needs, you have different skills, you have different, workspace, workflow, all that stuff. So if you start with whatever you have, these pain points will emerge and you'll be like, okay, my camera lens is too close, but I can't move my camera back because it's already up against a wall, so I need a wider lens. Or, I'm using a boom microphone, but it sounds too reverby and echoey, so maybe I need a microphone, that I can place closer to me so that way the sound is, clearer and better. As you start making stuff and going through things, your specific needs will make themselves like evident to you, and then you'll kind of know exactly what your upgrade path should be. It's slower, it's not just getting like everything all at once, like Christmas morning, but it's probably like the more practical way to do things. Landon, struggling with sticking to a consistent audio style. I prefer the podcasty sound of my pod mic, but don't like the look of my mic and shot. Also, own a Deity S2, but yeah. I'm laughing because I'm somebody who like I barely ever use the same setup twice. I use all the same gear, but in different combinations. So it's like, I'll use this setup, and now I'm using a wireless mic instead of the XLR microphone, or I'll use my FX3 with the Sennheiser boomed out of frame, but then I'll use a mic on and on. Like, I'm always changing it up, and I feel like it's not super consistent. But I see what you're saying. So you like the podcast sound, but don't want a mic in shot. Okay. So it does make sense then to boom a mic out of frame. I've been using the Sennheiser MKH50. Obviously, you have your Deity S Mic 2. The MKH50 is better than the S Mic 2, but it's also like so much more expensive. Where is it? Here we go. My favorite recommendation. This isn't the only one. Wait for my autofocus to come back. There it is. Or I guess we can go over here even. Had a whole video about this mic. This is the Audio-Technica AT897. This is a much more affordable microphone. So the Sennheiser MKH50 that is just kind of hanging out over there. I'm not using it for audio today. That's a $1,200 microphone. This is like a $200, $250 microphone. And it's such an underrated mic. It's not new. It's been around for, 15 years or more, 20 years, maybe more than that at this point. It's just super solid. It sounds awesome. I would say it's like 90% of the way there for the Sennheiser. So something like this might work. If you really like that sound though, and that's kind of the thing that you're going for, you like, maybe how the MKH50 sounds, but it's out of budget. Looking into pencil condenser microphones might be a thing to consider if you're filming indoors. So pencil condensers tend to be very sensitive microphones that are able to pick up sound when kind of boomed out of frame a little more. And then you're still going to get that. Having a mic out of frame versus having a mic in front of you, like there's just no way the laws of physics, right? Like if a mic is here versus here, this is just going to pick up more sound waves and more reverberation in the room versus a microphone that's just in front of your face. So there's nothing you can really do to get around that. But if you really nail down your boom mic's positioning, it can really help. And then using software, like, playing around with EQ, playing around with denoisers. A trick, I'll let you in on a little secret that I've been doing with my boom mic, is I've been using the audio from the MKH50, and then before I put the clips or anything into Final Cut Pro to start editing, sometimes I will take the audio from the clips and put them into Adobe's Enhanced Speech, which is like their audio repair tool. So if you have an Adobe account, it's pretty awesome. Like, it makes stuff sound really good. Basically, it's like if there's tons of background noise or whatever, it can eliminate that and really save your audio. But you don't have to just have damaged audio. So if I'm using my MKH50, it sounds amazing as is, and I've used it so many times without even touching the audio. But over the years, especially then using more like broadcast mics and stuff, I've become more aware of like the sound of reverb and, you know, echoes and room tone and stuff. And I don't want to eliminate it 100%, but I like to get rid of it as much as I can, where it still sounds natural. And I found that taking that, running it through Adobe Enhanced Speech, and then it kind of gives you some sliders where you can adjust the intensity, keeping it between like 40, 50%, really sounds awesome. I uploaded a video yesterday that's about negative reviews. If you watch that video, it is the Sennheiser MKH50 boomed out of frame with the audio that was processed with Adobe Enhanced Speech, and it sounds like there's an invisible microphone directly in front of me, but the mic was more than an arm's length away. So maybe finding a microphone, a boom mic that you like the sound of better, and then playing around with some software tools could potentially work. Cyrus Galacticus, you're welcome. Let's see, from your expertise, what do you recommend to amateurs to improve the audio quality of a raw signal from a mic like the Shure SM7B? I'm talking about post-processing. Yes, that's a great question with the SM7B, because that mic is specifically designed to be EQ'd. Like, it's such a popular microphone, people see it and they hear it, and then they buy their own and they think that they're immediately going to sound like their favorite podcast or their favorite streamer, and they kind of don't right away. That's the experience I had with it when I got my first SM7B back in like 2014, 2015. I was very disappointed with it at first, actually. And that's because it is such a flat microphone. On its own, it's like kind of boring. It's dull, sort of muddy, but that's because you can EQ it to make any voice pop on that microphone, which is why it is one of the reasons why it's so popular, is it can work on any voice. So a couple of things to do, or at least a couple of things that I do, like with the Rodecaster and stuff, is EQ and compression. And EQ, you don't need to go into like a 31 band thing where you have all these faders and channel and things. If you just have like a high, medium, and low EQ, that can kind of play around. Like, let me see on my Rodecaster, actually, what am I doing with my preset over here? So if I look on my Rodecaster, what do I have my EQ? Yeah, so what I've done here for the SM7B on the Rodecaster is I have actually boosted the lows a little bit. I've taken out a little bit of the mids and a little bit of the highs. So it kind of, which is strange because the SM7B has no problem with low end, but on my voice, you know, emphasizing the low end, sort of de-emphasizing some of those higher, more nasally frequencies tends to help a little bit. And then using a compressor really helps to kind of brighten everything up. Those two things alone will make a huge difference. And actually, where is the video? Oh my goodness. There's a lot of phone calls happening today. There's a video that I might be able to put a link to. Boop-a-doop. I need to find my channel. How do I find my own channel? Okay, videos. This was one I did recently. Ha, here we go. Whoa, that was an example of bad audio. I'm going to copy this link. This is a video I did recently called Make Your Voice Sound Better in Podcast 3 Quick Steps. And so if you want, it basically covers exactly what we talked about. High pass filter, EQ, you know, playing with EQ, maybe a little bit compression and stuff. So that will kind of help dial things in. And the reason I'm recommending that video is because you can do those settings in any audio edit or video editing application. They're like the most basic settings. Is Enhanced Speech in Audition? It's in Premiere. It's not directly linked to Audition yet, as far as I know, so it's like a separate browser-based thing. So I always log into their browser thing and then upload it. I could actually show you, because I have a screen share here. I don't know if I can let's see, Adobe Enhanced Speech. I don't know that I'll be able to like play the audio for you to hear it. Let's see here, Badoop and Badoop. Okay, yeah, here's the videos I was working on yesterday. I don't think, let me see if I play. Yeah, I don't have routing done to set this up so you can hear the difference or not. But basically you drag your audio, it processes some stuff, and then it gives you this where you have like how much like speech clarity is there and then how much background removal. So it kind of works on two things. Like it focuses on the voice and then it focuses on the background. I have found when I'm like recording stuff in here, keeping these at around 50%, maybe a little under, this gives me a natural result because you don't want it to sound crazy isolated because there is space, like there is space in here. There should be some air in the environment that I'm in, but I don't want it to sound boomy and reverby and untreated. So I've been doing this a lot with the MKH50 and it's really helped me match it to like the broadcast mics that I use a lot. It works really well. Put that over there. So let's see here. Oh, look at this. PokeMarket Lab. Thank you so much. Have you seen sample videos from Google's VO3? I have not, and I actually don't know anything about what that is. So maybe I'll have to use this super chat and buy myself some knowledge to figure out what that is. But I appreciate the support very much. Hey, Joe, what's up? Thanks for becoming a member. Let's see here. Oh, I went back. I was just kind of plopping through the whole chat here. That way I don't miss. Sometimes I do the thing where it's like put a queue for question, but then on my end, I have like two separate things. One is only comments that have the queue and everything else. And sometimes I feel like I miss discussion. So I'm just doing the full chat for today. Is the YOLO camera UVC compliant? Yes, because it does work. Well, actually, I'm using it. Oh, no, I'm not using it as USB HDMI. It does work via USB with the Rodecaster Video. To me, the Rodecaster Video is like the ultimate litmus test for UVC webcams because it is so picky. This OBSBot works with it. This works with it. The Osmo Pocket works with it. But other things like the InstaLink doesn't work with it. Like other cameras that you think, or even some that say they are UVC, don't work with it. So if it works with the Rodecaster Video, I feel like that's a good litmus test. Oh, good. Marty's helping with the thing. Cool. Thank you for helping a tip right there. What is comparable to the YOLO cam? I don't know. I don't know if there really is anything because it's so strange, but it's strange in a good way. Because there are high-end expensive webcams, but I don't know of any that have a micro four thirds sensor with, then you can just use all micro four thirds lenses, which have been around for a very long time at this point. Yes, I'm not sure. And then especially throwing in autofocus. Yeah, so I'm not sure. The downside to this though, or the autofocus positioning for me is because it's not like camera like this where the camera is seeing things through the lens and then adjusting based on that. The autofocus is over here. So if you're a person like me who uses something like the Elgato prompter, it gets covered up. So it's something where the camera needs to be visible all the time. Probably not the best camera to use if you're using something like a prompter. Let's see. Get a Canon R50V for 650 bucks. There you go. Can you recommend any 4K switchers with buttons, not screens? No. And I don't mean no, but I mean like it's such a good question because they don't really exist. I have the YOLO Box Extreme over here, which I've been playing around and testing with. This has 8 inputs, but it has a screen, not buttons, although you can pair it with the YOLO deck, which is like their stream deck. And this has 8 inputs, 4 of which can be 4K. 4K in and out. So, but that's $2,000. And this is where the switcher market is getting so competitive that something is going to happen soon. But if we pop this up, I just went to B&H and searched up 4K switcher. Because you have sort of these things like the Blackmagic, these like rack mount switchers, which are really designed more for like studios and professionals, although you could make them work in a home setting. And even those get a little pricey, but they do have physical buttons, which is nice. see everything here, like the ATEMs are all 1080, the Rodecaster Video's 1080. There's not a lot. So here's a $3,000 one. And what's tricky, what I've noticed is a lot of switchers will say they're 4K, but it means that they accept a 4K input, not that they have 4K outputs. I've actually never heard of this one. Resolution, see, it's resolution's up to 4K 60, but does that mean input or output? I don't know. And then it's interesting, the tech specs aren't here. I don't know that I would trust that. Yeah, see, switcher supports up to 4 HDMI inputs with resolutions up to 4K 60. This is what so many of them are doing now, because everybody knows people want 4K, is they're saying it's a 4K switcher because it will take a 4K input, even though the output is still 1080. And I'm not a huge fan of that. There are a few 4K ones, but they're like $3,000, $4,000, $5,000, $6,000. There isn't like an ATEM Mini $400 or $500 simple little switcher that is for full 4K currently. It's a very tricky thing, and I know like companies are trying to get there, and there's like, you know, like YOLO Box is making some inroads, and I've heard rumors of new products coming out, but it's not 100% there yet. So I actually don't have any recommendations, but it's something that I'm paying attention to constantly because I'm so curious about it. Unless someone knows something I don't, which is very much a possibility. What's up, Mr. Camera Junkie? I haven't seen you in a while. It's nice to see you here. Let's see here. Astrological Productions is currently trying to find the best condenser or dynamic microphone for voice acting and gaming. That there is no best. Yeah, so the decisions to make there is first USB versus XLR, second condenser versus dynamic. If you're just starting, you know, the fact that you're asking like for voice acting and gaming, the way you phrased your question makes me think you don't currently have audio gear. So that would mean you can start from scratch. The whole world is your oyster, which is cool. USB mics have gotten super good. So getting something like a Sennheiser Profile, which is a condenser microphone, or a Shure MV7 Plus, which is a dynamic microphone, could be all that you need to sound amazing. And then you're good. And then you have different options there. If you want to go the XLR route, then you need a mixer or an interface, and then you choose your microphone there. Condenser dynamic, it kind of depends on what goes with your voice, so it's sort of tricky, like, because everybody's voices are different and everybody's environments are different. So if you have a voice similar to mine and you're in a relatively quiet environment like mine, you can probably figure out which, look at the mics I've reviewed and you'll probably know what they might sort of sound like on your voice. But if you have a very different sounding voice from me, or you're in a totally different environment, somewhere that's super loud or super echoey or something, reverby, then it's like, it might be kind of hard to know what something's gonna sound like, even though you've heard it on me or on somebody else. So some of my favorites, obviously the SM7B is a legend for a reason. If you have enough gain to run that microphone, it's awesome. Other ones that are very cool, actually this one right here, I'm not gonna switch and mess up my whole setup. This is the Lewitt LCT 440, which is a phenomenal sounding microphone. This is a condenser, I love that. It's a little more expensive than, where did I put it? Maybe you can see it in this shot here. Yeah, than the Lewitt LCT 240 Pro, which is over here. This is like a $100 microphone and it is awesome. Those are some of my favorites. The Rode NT1, I'm looking up here. I don't know if you can see it. Oh, up. Here's an older NT1. Right above that, I have my NT1 Signature Series, my blue one, which I really love. That's like one of my favorite condenser mics. I love the sound of that microphone, and it comes in cool colors, which is cool to me. Those are some of my favorites. But again, it kind of depends on where you're at, if you're doing XLR, if you're doing USB. And then I personally, I don't really pay attention to dynamic or condenser when it comes to making decisions. And I know that is sort of heresy to say that. There is a difference. The general rule of thought is that dynamic microphones are better at blocking out unwanted noise, and condenser microphones pick up more background noise. I have found that to be sort of kind of true, and I've done videos about this too. All things being equal, it's kind of true. Like if you have a condenser microphone running at 30 decibels of gain and a dynamic microphone at 30 decibels of gain, you switch between them, you will notice that the dynamic microphone probably sounds quieter overall, or it's rejecting more background noise. The catch is that rarely are you able to run them at the same amount of gain, because dynamic microphones tend to need a lot more gain. So what that means is, even though all things being equal, maybe that thing is true, by the time you boost the gain, like if I use the SM7B with a Rodecaster, I usually need to run it like 56 decibels a gain. If I use the NT1 with the Rodecaster, I run it at like 29 decibels a gain. So that's a very big difference. At that point, when I switch between them, there's no difference in terms of like the amount of background noise they're picking up or anything. They're pretty much exactly the same. So it depends on your setup. It depends on your mixer. There's so many variables that go into it. All that to say, I encourage people not to get hung up on like, oh, I really like that microphone, but it's a condenser, and I think my environment, I need to be using a dynamic microphone. Like, get the microphone that you think is the best fit for you. You know, there's so many good microphones that'll sound great. I see lots of people talking about the Canon R50, which I have not used. It's like their new, it's kind of like their ZV-E10 competitor. I'm hoping I can borrow one just to check out for a bit, which would be really, really cool. Any recommendation for a spoken word narration work in a closed booth under $1,000? I don't know. I know like all the things like whisper rooms and booths and stuff are very expensive. A thing that I used to do though when I was teaching, and this actually might, I forget, it's been a while. Okay, it's been a while since I've used this stuff, so I might be like out of the loop. When I was a teacher, sometimes I used to get things like this for my students to use, these little like isolation shields, which kind of work. You basically, they're small, they can go on a desktop, or you can mount them on a mic stand. There you sort of see what it looks like. And they have like acoustic foam around a microphone. And these really do help, especially one of my former classrooms was basically a giant warehouse. It looked like a garage. So it was just hard surfaces, literally garage doors everywhere. Recording good audio in there was very tough. And these things really did make a difference. And they're semi-portable, which is kind of cool. And they're not crazy expensive. So 70 bucks, there you go. It's not going to make anyone think that you're in like a pro booth by any means. I can't remember what the, I think it was Auralite. I don't know if that's the brand. I can't remember what these were. Acoustic panels. I don't remember what. Okay, here we go. Booths, baffles, and enclosures. Yeah, so you can get, these are kind of for like drums and stuff. It's not exactly what I'm looking for. Although things for drums might work. I wish I could remember the brand of the thing I used to get. I had several of these for my students. Not just the regular foam. Yeah, these right here. I used to get these a lot. They come with little basically mic stands, and they're, you know, I think like 2 foot by 4 foot foam panels, and the mic stands go in them. I would get 4 of them, and then you could kind of make like a makeshift booth with them. And it actually worked really, really well. It's, you know, it's a little clunky compared to the slickness of an official booth, but it's pretty flexible and versatile, and I don't know, they work really well. So Auralex, this was the ones I had different patterns on it, but it doesn't really matter. And they used to come in different colors. I don't know if they still do or not, but that could work. And you could get it for under $1,000. You could get 4 of those, which is cool. Let's see, Profile Wireless did just get a 32-bit float update, so I can switch over here. Wow, that's really zoomed in. Can we back up on that? What are we doing? It's because I flail my hands so much, it always thinks, oh no, we're zooming in more. Let's zoom, there we go. Okay, let me go over here and grab my Profile Wireless. All right, yes, this is a very cool, very, very cool mic system. And I mean, I could just say, I don't even need to go like get the whole thing to just prove your point, but yes. Profile Wireless is Sennheiser's, you know, dual transmitter system, which has the very satisfying click to release everything. This was incredibly competitive with like the Rode and the DJI, except the one thing it was missing was 32-bit float, and they just added it in a firmware update. So now for $299, so it's less than the Rode, less than the DJI. It's the same price as the Ceramonic Ultra. Now you get the Profile Wireless with 32-bit float audio, which is pretty cool. Now I'm just gonna go into like a review on this. Some cool advantages to this. I like the form factor. I like its weird 1980s sort of tech here. You've got your receiver that pops out. You've got your dual transmitters. You can use it as either a mono or stereo just microphone for interviewing or as a USB microphone, which is very cool. You've got your magnets just stored right here on the back. And then you've also got, which these are becoming a bit more of a commodity, you have your Lightning and USB adapters right in there. I'll show you maybe right here. If I block out my eyes. You've got that stuff there along with your camera hot shoe adapter. So everything except the windscreens fit in here, and then the transmitters themselves, which is pretty cool. They have a 1/4 20 mount on the bottom. So if you need that, that's there. And then they also have a metal locking connector. So if you connect the lavalier microphone, you have metal locking connector. The Rode has a locking connector, but I believe theirs is plastic. So the Sennheiser is metal, which is awesome. And it has a very satisfying, like just the click. It's very satisfying. So that was the big complaint. People really like this thing. The one thing they kept saying that they didn't like about it was that it did not have 32-bit float, and now it does. So there you go. I think that makes it even more competitive, which is very cool. Neumann. I would love to use and have Neumann microphone. Those are definitely, I was just talking to my friend Bronson from Audio Hotline about this the other day. Those are probably beyond my budget for the foreseeable future, although really wonderful, great sounding microphones, like a U87, you know, it's pretty cool. Best budget option for a full frame camera for live streaming from any full frame. I think budget full frame, I don't know if that's a thing. Live streaming for many hours. So it's not budget, but the Sony FX3 is awesome. And the reason I'm saying that is because it does have the built-in fan. It's super reliable. I've had mine since the end of 2021. It is never overheated. It's really never given me any problems. It's an awesome camera. So if you want reliability, Sony FX3. If you can live without full frame, then the FX30 is about half the price. The other option, which is sort of in the middle, is actually the camera my wife uses, but there's a few caveats. She uses the Sony ZV-E1, which it's basically the guts of the FX3, but in a smaller body, barely bigger than the ZV-E10 Mark II. It's a cool camera, and the quality is awesome, obviously, because it's the same as the FX3. It does have the potential to overheat, and when she first got hers, it was overheating. And I even bought the little Ulanzi fan. So Ulanzi makes a clip. I don't know where I put the fan, somewhere. Ulanzi makes this little fan that you can clip. You open the LCD screen, you clip the fan kind of in where the screen goes, and it will just cool the camera. And that works really well. And then you don't have to worry about overheating. And I think the fan's like $40. But on her camera, at least in her office, we just made sure that the screen is always open and the camera has never overheated since. And that's been since like August or September of last year. And she streams for many, many hours. I think her longest stream recently was like 4 or 5 hours. Sometimes the camera forgets to be turned off, so it stays on. It's never overheated since then, which is pretty cool. So the ZV-E1 could be an option. Are you using the DJI 2? Yeah, this is the DJI Mic Mini that I'm using right here. MKH416, very good microphone. I do have a video that compares the MKH50 to the 416. I personally prefer the sound of the MKH50, but the 416 is obviously like, you know, it's a legendary microphone for a reason. So there we go. When's the next Rodecaster coming? I have no idea. But I was actually just thinking about this yesterday. The Rodecaster Pro 2 is now as old as the original Rodecaster was when the 2 was released. The difference though, and this is just me thinking, I have zero insider knowledge. The difference I think is that the Rodecaster Pro 2, a lot of that was a necessity because when the original Rodecaster came out, which is on my table right here, that was designed to just be a podcast mixer. It was not designed to live in this like live streaming, live event world where like it has found a home since then. And Rode released like at least a dozen pretty major firmware updates for that thing that really changed it. I pre-ordered it, so I had it the day it was released, you know, up until the Rodecaster Pro 2 came out. By the time it was at the end of its lifespan, it was a very different device than when it was released because they added all these features to accommodate like the live streaming world. So much so that it got to the point where it just couldn't do anymore. Like there was a firmware update where like they had a reverb effect and then it was removed because even adding in something simple like that was kind of like maxing out the processor and reducing the reliability. So then the Rodecaster Pro 2 came out, which is many, many times more powerful than the original Rodecaster. So it looks different, it has all that stuff, but its internal processing capabilities should be powerful enough to add in new features, adjust firmware updates for longer than the original. So I don't know. It's weird. Like it's hard to imagine a lot of people like regularly updating their podcast mixers. You know, like plenty of people still use the original Rodecaster because they bought it 5 years ago and it works great. It still works, and they're, you know, it's not something that you upgrade every year. So I don't know that Rode is super interested in like constantly pumping out new models, especially because they do all of their own manufacturing, and so just from a cost perspective, being able to keep producing the thing that you're already producing is cheaper than manufacturing a brand new thing. So there we go. When will you upgrade your M1 Mac Mini? That is what I'm running this whole stream on right now. I don't know. The cool thing is the longer I wait, the better the computers will get. So it's fine. My Mac Mini, I think I'm starting to max it out with like, I basically have 3 displays running through it, mixers, interfaces, plus a webcam. Like I have a hub and I have a dock and a hub, so I have like so many different things running through it. I think I'm starting to max it out just in terms of what it can handle, and sometimes I've noticed like Bluetooth dropouts or Wi-Fi. Like it's weird, like network problems have been popping up, but like it still works. Like that's what I'm using right now. Whenever I got this computer, when did I get this? January. I got this January 1st, 2021. I remember that. Still works. Still works. Morning chat. Hope your day is great too. Hey, oh wait, that's the super chat we saw. Still appreciative for that. Thanks for the SM7B post-process answer. Bought the Rodecaster Pro 2 day 1 and before launch to the point where I feel audio, and got to the point where I feel audio is boring, as you said. I do really like the SM7B preset in the Rodecaster. I think that's a good place to start. Can I buy an AM8 mic for voiceovers and live stream? Oh yeah. The AM8 is awesome. I have a video on that. It is a very good mic. The K669T. I have a review on the K669B, but I don't know what the difference is between the T. You got to spill the T on the T. Let's see here. It looks like, okay. This is just an updated version. I mean, I've reviewed the 669, or at least a version of it, and I've reviewed the AM8. Both are great. I would kind of lean towards the AM8, to be honest with you. The big difference is this is a condenser microphone. The 669 is a condenser, and the AM8 is a dynamic microphone. The reason I like the AM8 is because I did like the sound of it a little bit more, but also it is USB and XLR both. So you can use it as a USB mic to start, but then if you end up needing to use it or wanting to use it as an XLR mic down the line, you can. And I think that's really cool, especially for the price. Can't go wrong, you know. Andreas, thanks for a lot of inspiration for live stream adventure. Oh, that's really nice. Any tips for PTZ camera to have a closer look on? Obsbot Tiny Air 2. Yeah, I have the Tail Air, which I'm experimenting with. And I got to check out the Tiny Air, no, the Air 2. Product names are hard. The new one, I think it's the Air 2. I saw that at NAB last month, and it is really cool. Like, it's not 100% on par with like a mirrorless camera, interchangeable lens camera, but it is really good. It's about as close as you could probably possibly get without going in the world of interchangeable lenses. So that's the one I would look into. I haven't used Obsbot stuff until a couple months ago. I've kind of been slowly diving in and experimenting and exploring it. I've been super impressed with it. Like, their cameras are awesome, at least the ones I've been using, and I quite like them a lot. Oh, this is a good point about the mixers. Some of them, with the 4K inputs, they can record 4K, but the stream, the output is still 1080. That's a good point. Where do you process your DJI Mic Mini when connected to the Rodecaster Duo? I actually have never connected it to the Rodecaster Duo. Right now, it's just running into the USB of my microphone, so there's zero processing on here. You could use the like a 3.5 to XLR cable to run the receiver into the Rodecaster and then just use whatever processing you want in the Rodecaster. I've just never done that. Anytime I've wanted to run a wireless mic through the Rodecaster, I just use the Rodes, either the Interview Pro or the Wireless Pro. That's just personal preference though. Have you tried setting up MIDI routing of pads on the Rodecaster Pro 2? I actually have a video about this. Back when they first started implementing that back on the Rodecaster 1, I was showing how to do them on as a video switcher. So you could use the pads to switch, basically be like a Stream Deck. But admittedly, I'm a bit of an idiot, when it comes to MIDI. And it's just like, it hurts my brain to figure out MIDI stuff. So you can, they're totally prepped for it. I am not good for it. Gain levels for a pod mic on the Rodecaster video, 40 decibels. That's probably, I would probably, I mean, it depends on your voice and your environment. So if you're getting the proper signal at 40, you're good. Typically when I use a pod mic, it's probably closer to 50, but it could just be my voice or my environment or my preferences. Adobe Enhance has been awesome for sure. I'll give tweaking the deity placement and some room treatment a shot. Yeah, I hope that helps. I really do. Built a booth and I'm looking to put the best mic somewhere for somewhat baritone voice. Screens are great for offsite work. Cool. Rob is here. What's up, Rob? You get to set up a high school podcast studio. I've been there. It's cool because last time I set up a high school thing was like, there's so much more accessible gear now. Like I was trying to use like low end professional stuff. So stuff that would be in like a TV studio or a radio station or whatever, back when I was like setting up classrooms the last time. And now it's like so much stuff it's just cheaper and more accessible and easier to use. There's so many better options. We're upgrading the mixer for a podcast and I'm torn between the Rodecaster Pro 2 or the DLZ Creator. Do you have a preference? They are both great. I've owned and used both. I lean towards the Rodecaster for user friendliness, but the DLZ is awesome. The thing, which is like the thing to be aware of, is Rode's parent company last year, maybe the year before, bought Mackie. So basically the same company owns Rode and Mackie. What they have said is that the teams it's business as usual. Like Mackie gets to keep doing Mackie things, Rode keeps to get doing Rode things. They don't really have a lot of competing products for the most part, so it shouldn't be a problem, except audio mixers and switchers. An example that someone gave in another past live stream was it's almost like Fender and Gretsch. So Fender, you know, the guitar company, they also own Gretsch guitars. You could argue that those are competing things, but they both still come out with new guitar models at the same price points and people buy both. So that's hopefully where things are going, because the DLZ was really the main one that could actually give the Rodecaster a run for its money. And I liked that. And so I was a little worried to see that, you know, oh, maybe that competitiveness will disappear. I have noticed that since that acquisition, there haven't really been like firmware updates for the DLZ line. I have the DLZ XS is the one that I love the most because it's so small. But I don't know if they're going to be getting the firmware updates, whereas Rode releases firmware updates constantly. So with that in mind, you're probably going to get a longer lifespan. You're probably going to have a better user experience with the Rodecaster. But if you can get a DLZ at a cheaper price, their current prices are basically the same, with the big DLZ being more expensive than the Rodecaster. But because of all kinds of variables, sometimes you can find the DLZs for cheap. If you get them at a really good discount, then it's like, I don't know, it's a really, really good deal. Okay, I'm catching up. We were talking about the Profile Wireless over here. 416 is amazing. Rodecaster Pro 3 needs timecode. I'm wondering if that's something, I don't know enough about timecode, but I'm wondering if something could be added in a firmware update to the current one. See, if you just bought one, that increases the likelihood of a new one coming out. Yes. Where's he getting these questions from? The internet. ChatGPT. That's the only, everybody in the chat is just AI. Sorry, if you didn't know you were an AI, I'm sorry. Big fan of the Elgato prompter. Yes. How do you deal with glare when trying to see yourself as you're reading? I don't have that problem. The problem I have, let's see, I think I can change. Ooh. I accidentally turned off my prompter there somehow. I don't know what I did. That's not good. I was trying to adjust the brightness with my Stream Deck and the prompter just turned off. So that's fun times. But I guess the stream is still going, hopefully. There we go. That's weird. Something is up with my, I had a knob on my Stream Deck that could do brightness, and for some reason it's not working. So if I turn this all the way up, if I turn the prompter brightness to 100, I think, let me bring this window over here. I believe, turn it down. Yeah, you can see, obviously it's acting as a fill light. So now there's a brighter light source coming here, but you can kind of see there's almost like a haze that gets introduced, like a blue haze in the shot. And that is just the glare of the super bright screen on the glass. So normally what I do is I keep this fairly dim, usually under 50%, and that's pretty good where I can still see it. Actually, I need to bump it up a little bit. My wife keeps her prompter super dim, like in the 30s, and it works for her. Mine's about 50, 60%. And then I can see myself. It's plenty bright for me to see myself, but I don't have to, there's no glare. So that's usually what I do there. As far as like, if there's glare like on the glass or something that only I can see, I haven't had that as a problem. Yeah. Love to know about current setup. Sure, we talked about this a little bit at the beginning. So this is the Canon EOS R, and then the Canon 35mm f2. This is the Sony FX3 and Sony 24. The Elgato prompters going here. Normally I use an XLR mic going through the Rodecaster, but today I'm just using the DJI Mic Mini. And then I've got the Rodecaster video right here. And that's what's running my different camera sources through. And that's all going through the base model M1 Mac Mini from 2020. So there we go. Oh yeah, Rode did release new headphones. They look cool. I haven't used them. I didn't know they were coming out with headphones, but I've never used like on-ear headphones. I like that mine are over there. I like the ones that cover your ears. But the new ones look nice, and they look like, the design looks really cool, and they seem like the build quality looks pretty awesome. Have a Samson CO3. I have never used that one, so I have no thoughts on it. Although every Samson mic I've used has been great. Hey Joe, thank you so much. Photographer wanting to live stream racquetball. Yes, looking for recommendation for a 4K 60 camera. We use OBS and online scorecard 4K 60. I mean, my number one budget option is always the Sony ZV-E10. However, shameful self-promotion here. Wait, that's not the right thing. Did I get rid of Safari? I think I did. Boom. There we go. If you go to my website, hi-my-name-is-tom.com, there's a gear section and there's a recommended setups section. And so I don't have a sports specific thing, but I do have like 4K live stream and then my recommended gear for all that stuff, cameras and everything. So the ZV-E10 is always like the first recommendation that comes to mind because it's so affordable and so accessible. For outdoor things, for sports, yeah, I'm not 100% sure. It should be okay. It sort of depends on the setup. Like, are you setting up the camera to just film the racquetball court, or are you like whip panning back and forth and doing stuff like that? Where then stuff like rolling shutter could be a problem, or overheating or whatever. But if it's just a pretty simple static shot, something like the ZV-10 is probably the way to go. If you have the budget for it, then the FX30, and you don't mind a crop sensor, then the FX30 gives you a bit more reliability and stability, which is cool. Greetings from Calgary, awesome. Yeah, our local hockey team plays the Calgary Wranglers a lot, so that's my familiarity with Calgary. Video looks crispy in HD, that's cool, because this is just 1080, so even in the world of 4K, high quality 1080 works. What do you think about the Blue Yeti? I have a video called, Is the Blue Yeti Really That Bad? And in that video, I kind of look at it. Essentially, my thoughts on the Blue Yeti are that it's not the best choice anymore. When it was released, there were so few USB options. It was like such an easy way to get a cool looking microphone that could do a lot of stuff and improve your sound. Now there's just so many options at so many price points. I don't think it's the best option, but it's not as bad as people make it out to be. I'm gonna go grab my Yeti actually. So let's see. Doop. Here, I'm so zoomed in. Why do you like zooming in on me so much? You know what? I'm just gonna go grab it. You can still hear me though. I'm just going over here to the shelf, picking up the Yeti, bringing it back. So this is my Yeti. When I got this microphone, I was so blown away by the sound quality because I didn't have, this is like pre-pod mic, you know, pre-Rodecasters. It was like, wow, like a microphone that's close to me, it sounds so good. Now comparing it to SM7Bs and Lewitt microphones and all these different things, it's like, yeah, it doesn't sound as good. But it's a cool microphone because you do have all the different pickup patterns. When I have found that this microphone is not sounding good, like 90% of the time it's user error. So the logo on the front, this faces you and you talk into it there. I'm guessing you probably know this if you have a Blue Yeti, but the number of times I've seen people sort of talking into the microphone like this, they have it usually pointed backwards and then the top pointed at them. No, it's going to sound terrible. Like any microphone is going to sound bad if it's not positioned the way it's supposed to be. You're not speaking into the proper pickup thing. Or people don't adjust the gain properly, so they either have it too quiet or way too loud, so then it's blown out and clipping. Usually if you start with the gain at about 10 or 11 o'clock and then you kind of adjust to your voice, you'll get a good result. And then the pickup pattern, there's a cardioid one, which almost looks like a little bean. That's the one you want to be on most of the time for just single voice setups. The other ones, you can use them if you have other people or whatever, but a lot of times people have the wrong things. They'll have like the omnidirectional pickup pattern. It's picking up sound from every direction. They're not talking into the right side of the microphone, and then they're like, the Blue Yeti sounds terrible. It's like, well, there's so many mistakes being made there. It's not the microphone's fault. So if you get a Blue Yeti and you use it properly, it can sound pretty darn good. There are just so many other good options and maybe even better options now than there used to be. 69 Samsung's golden buy Bitcoin. Depending on your Bitcoin portfolio, you might only be able to afford a Samsung. Alrighty, wow, time really flies when you're having fun. Appreciate everyone being here. I think that's probably, unless there's any last questions, I think that's probably where we'll wrap things up. I'll get to work on some other videos and stuff. When it comes to microphones, the Yeti can totally be a studio microphone. Almost any microphone can be. So much has to do with how you're positioning the microphone, how you're sound treating the environment around it, and then what you're doing afterwards to process the audio and add EQ. Speaking of audio hotline, I only said your name once, not 3 times, but you still showed up. Tomorrow, I have a video coming out, which I'm actually very excited about, diving into a thing that I know nothing about or didn't, which is headset microphones. So I've had the Rode NTH100s that have the little headset mic you can attach to them, and I think that it sounds awesome, and I've used it a lot. But that can be kind of expensive. It's like, I think if you get the headphones and the headset mic, it's like 180 bucks. So I was like, okay. One, I'm surprised that headset microphones sound good now. I've just been under the impression that headset microphones are bad. 2, is there a cheaper option? So speaking of Fifine, I found the Fifine H9 headsets, which I was actually talking to Audio Hotline about this just a lot lately. These are $35 headphones, and they have a headset. They're very decent headphones. They come in white, black, and pink. And I actually think that the sound quality is amazing. I found these because I was watching a bunch of headset reviews, and so many of them, even the more expensive ones, sounded terrible. And it wasn't until somebody was using the Fifine ones that I was like, wait, those actually sound Fifine, and I want to learn more about that. So I did a whole video about headset microphones, specifically the Fifines and the Rodes, just to find some good recommendations. And that's gonna be tomorrow's video, which is cool because that's something I've never touched on. Never done anything with headset mics in the past. And thanks for subscribing. Are you rich yet? I appreciate that. The answer to your question of the username, though, is no. So with all that being said, I appreciate everyone being here. I appreciate all the kindness, all the support, all the fun. Hope you guys have a great rest of your day. Definitely check out that video tomorrow. Even if you're like, I'm not into headset microphones, not into that. It's a fun video. Definitely encourage you to check it out. And yeah, so I'm gonna wrap this up. I always do a 1-minute outro in case there's last minute something happens in the chat or you want to say goodbye to everyone, and there we go. And what kind of, sorry, I'm just gonna ask these. What kind of arm do you have for the Rodecaster Pro 2? Oh my gosh, I can't think of it. The thing. The brand is Vivo is the arm that I use, but VESA, yeah, VESA and Vivo. Any VESA arm will work. I use a Vivo arm because it's very, very long. Does the Rodecaster have a software controller like the Ecamm software controller? Yes, it does. Rode Central, actually now it's Rodecaster dedicated software. You can do everything on the computer, which is very, very cool. Do more videos on live stream events. It's a good topic, good topic, good topic. All right, let's wrap up. I'll see you guys later. If you want to watch the replay, that's awesome. And if you are watching the replay, feel free to leave comments and stuff, and I'll get back to those as soon as I can. That sounds like an old voicemail message. I saw the thing that said VESA as I popped up, so I said VOISA. Okay, brain is broken. Have a great day. Thanks for being here. See y'all next time.